Well, we're going to be focusing on something completely different, something that we take for granted, something that we probably do in everyday life, and we actually don't realize that we're breaking the law. What am I talking about? I'm talking about photocopying willy-nilly, photocopying entire books, especially people who are studying, and they think that it's okay to just photocopy the textbook just like that. Apparently, it's not okay. You just might need a special license in order to do that, or your school may need to have a special license in order to do that. To tell us more about that, we've got the Chief Executive of the Trinidad and Tobago Reprographic Rights Organization, Eleanor Hoyt. Good morning to you, Ms. Hoyt, and thanks for joining us on set. So how many of us need to be carted off to jail for this particular copyright infringement?
No, before we go into, I mean, just like when Eleanor sat on set, I said, okay, I have to be really honest with you. Last night I had to pull out my dictionary. For those of us who don't know what it is, maybe we can explain, Trinidad, what is reprographic rights?
Reprography is about photocopying and any kind of digital or photocopying reproduction of works. Literary works, including books, magazines, maps, photography, visual artist works. So any kind of graphics or image works that you're photocopying and digitally copying, that is referred to as reprography. And the reprographic rights is about the right that the creator of these works have, the rights that they have to the economic returns on the usage of their work. So TTRRO, as we call our company, Trinidad and Tobago Reprographic Rights Organization, we represent creators, publishers, and all the of graphic and image works internationally and nationally.
We've heard from the copyright organization, COT, that much of the money that they collect goes out of the country and a little bit of it stays in the country in terms of the copyrighted works of our composers and artists here in Trinidad and Tobago. Is it a similar ratio for in the area of reprography and reprographic rights?
What happens is that we have reciprocal agreements with, well, let me back up a little bit. There's an organization called the International Federation of Reproduction Rights Organizations. And they represent other reproduction rights organizations like TTRRO in 67 different countries. And we are a member of that organization. And because of that, we have reciprocal agreements called bilateral agreements with these countries, with 18 of those countries, and 21 more are in train, so that we represent their repertoire of works here in Trinidad, as well as we have members of the organization, and we also represent their repertoire of works here in Trinidad. So once we have a license to with an educational institution or with a corporate citizen or with the government, the libraries, these are the people who would use literary works, we are entitled to collect fees on behalf of our rights holders, the people who we represent. And once we do this, those reciprocal agreements that we have allows us to keep the funds that we have collected on their behalf here in Trinidad for a period of time, a moratorium of 3 years, which is almost up. And they have the same agreement with us, and then we start distributing funds based on the usage. So even if some of the money goes out of the country, to these people, they send us money also because they are also using our literary works and they represent our repertoire in their countries.
Helen, for those looking this morning, you know, off air we were having some conversations about what exactly your organization does, and what we're supposed to or not supposed to do. A lot of university students are, I think, guilty of photocopying entire textbooks. And you
Yes.
probably had your days.
Even in secondary school and primary school, it
Everywhere.
happens.
You go, and I mean, but some people would complain that the price is simply out of reach. And sometimes even when you go to a library, you can only get one textbook or two textbooks, and they just kind of photocopy the entire thing. Is it that we're all guilty of wrongdoings, and can we be hauled to jail?
The laws of Trinidad, the Copyright Act 1997, as amended by two amendments, number 18 of 2000 and number 5 of 2008, state categorically states in the Part 2 copyright under Section 9 that copying of books, whole books and whole magazines is just not allowed. It is illegal. And because of that, whether the books are expensive or not, education is an expensive process that allows you to go ahead and be economically viable down the road. And that is no excuse for breaking the law. You are breaking the law if you are copying whole books. And even if you want to photocopy a portion of the book, you have to have your organization, the schools, the educational institutions have to have a license from a copyright for collective management organization, which is what TTRRO is. You have to have a license from us to copy. And we state specifically how much you can copy. Some countries say 5%, other countries say 10%, right? So that we need to have this in place before any photocopying is done.
Now, there are a lot of photocopying institutions out there, and in terms of monitoring this situation, can you effectively do that?
We don't have to monitor the situation, all right? What happens is that there's an enforcement unit that is supposed to be established in Trinidad and Tobago by the police service, because they are the enforcement arm of the Copyright Act. And there are stringent penalties attached to a copyright infringement. So the enforcement unit, and we have actually started, went in to visit the police service to talk to one of their commissioners, assistant commissioners, about re-establishing the enforcement unit so that they are the ones who would be doing the enforcement. But we would, of course, have to work closely with them to be able to, so that they will know where we're at and what we're doing, so which is what we intend to do this year.
In terms of the infringements and making sure that you have the licenses in place, how expensive would it be for an educational institute to acquire that license? Is it a very expensive proposition? And is there a limit as to how much copying you can do? Because for audio, there's something that you can take maybe about 12 seconds of it for free, but anything more than that you have to pay. Does it work that way in reprographic rights as well?
Once you have a license, in the presence of a collective management organization, which is what the Act states, you are allowed to photocopy based on the agreement that you have signed. The agreements, as I said before, some countries allow 5%, some allow 10%. So what we have done in our licenses is put in the 5% copying ratio. But you cannot just go and copy it, because fair dealing does not apply anymore under the, once there's a collective management organization such as TTRRO, of which you are aware or should be aware. Those are the words of the Act.
So because you exist, we can no longer, you know, freely copy that 5% or 10%.
You can't. You need to have a license
in order to copy
at all. So we are not against photocopying. What we are against is the breaking of the law. You see, the photocopying